Alright, so I already did a first impressions of the Steam Deck, which you can check out somewhere up here, I'm sure. But as I'm continuing to test the Steam Deck, one of the things that I realized very quickly is that even though the Steam Deck at least comes with a very nice case as soon as you get it out of the box, it doesn't really come with a whole lot else aside from, I believe, a cleaning cloth. I think that was the only other thing, and the power cord. And what I realized in very short order was that there are a range of accessories that definitely make sense to grab for the Steam Deck. So that's what today's video is all about. If you're planning to pick up the Steam Deck, these are things that I think are absolute must-haves, or at least very much nice-to-haves, particularly if you're planning on doing a lot of tinkering with the system, which honestly, if you are, at all looking forward to pushing the system beyond what its initial limits are and putting weird new gaming experiences on it, I would highly recommend that you look into some of these. And to start, let's just go with the most basic accessory imaginable, but one that has been very helpful, if not at all overly expensive, and that's just a decent stand for the Steam Deck. I've got mine standing up on a little stand here that I got from Amazon. It was like 13 bucks, but it's not just that it's nice to have like a way to display it, kind of forward facing whenever you're not using it, but whenever you're using it in dock mode, if you plan to use a USB-C dock, which we'll get to that in a minute, but if you are planning to use with that, you'll still want to be able to see the screen easily if you're going to do double displays, whether you're, kind of using like the Steam Deck screen itself, and then you also want to use like a regular computer monitor and have two screens active simultaneously. And then sometimes you're still going to have to push the buttons on the Steam Deck even in docked mode, because every now and then you'll get in a weird place where it may not be able to recognize your mouse clicks or the keyboard for some reason. So being able to still access the controls easily while it's standing vertical has been a huge convenience. I'm sure you could even 3D print a stand fairly cheaply, or you could probably find one that's even, less expensive than like the 12 bucks I paid for this one back here. But yeah, a stand I think is an absolute must, particularly if you're going to have it mainly like sitting nearby on a desk or something like that. You don't want to always have the thing like laying down flat and then trying to like have it upward if you need to change connections or anything like that. So a good stand I think is pretty much a necessity, at least until we get that official dock from Steam, from Valve. But honestly, that even though that's probably going to be a decent stand, I assume it's going to be way more expensive than 12 or 13 bucks. So yeah, I think a stand is an absolute must. And naturally, as I already kind of alluded to, having a good USB-C dock is definitely helpful, especially if you're planning to use this thing at all as a computer. There are actually a ton out there that will work. I actually tested a few third-party ones that worked fine, but I also had weird issues with HDMI output for a couple of those. So what I did was I actually grabbed this USB-C dock from Anker that I'm showing on screen right now. And it pretty much gave me all the flexibility that I needed to perform the tasks that I wanted to with the Steam Deck. I don't plan to really use the Steam Deck at any great length in desktop mode, like it would never be my go-to computer because I'm just, a filthy Mac guy. But for those moments where you actually do want to manage files on it more easily, like if you're going to try to, load ROMs or do anything related to emulation with it, it would definitely be nice to be able to do so on a large external monitor rather than trying to do the whole thing through the screen. I actually tried to see how far I could get emulation set up using only the Steam Deck without having it docked, and it's technically doable, but it will not be a great experience because you will be spending a lot of time with an on-screen keyboard and using the touchpad functionality on the device to try to make that work. So yes, I definitely recommend picking up a USB-C dock like this one. This is the one that I ordered from Amazon. It's a little pricier than other docks that you would find in this range. Like, I think it was closer to 30 or 40 bucks. And I think you can find these for 15 or 20. I specifically went with Anker though, just because I know them to be a brand that exudes quality, and all of their products that I've used before has always been a really great experience. And this was no exception, right? It does, USB-C power pass-through, so you can make sure you still charge the device while you have it docked up. You got HDMI out, you've got a few USB ports, another USB-C port for data. Plus the USB-C connection itself felt really sturdy, and it felt like it had proper strain relief. I wasn't worried that, the connection was going to fail or anything like that. And the body for this one actually feels pretty sturdy and well made as well, where, a lot of those USB-C docks that you find that are like 10, 12 bucks, you're kind of rolling the dice on quality anyways. But if you've ever, checked out the build quality on one of those, it's usually pretty cheap plastic. It does not feel very durable. Meanwhile, with the Anker one that I have here, I would have zero reservation about like throwing it in a backpack or knocking it around a little bit, because I feel like it's actually gonna, withstand a little bit more abuse than you would get from some of those cheaper options. Next up would be a good keyboard and mouse. Now obviously mice are pretty cheap. Now it depends on what you're after, right? If you're planning to play a lot of like keyboard and mouse games in docked mode with this, your requirements might be different. You might want to go for a higher end gaming mouse. Personally, I just went for a really cheap like $12 mouse on Amazon because it wasn't that big of a deal for me. I just wanted something with a USB-C dongle that I could easily just, have a wireless connection to and not worry about it. Now, as keyboards go, there's some really cool ones out there, and I actually was very close to getting, I think it was the Razer Black Widow Mini, I want to say, which is kind of a small form factor USB-C rechargeable gaming keyboard. It looks really cool, but it also goes for like $150, which I thought was a little bit absurd for, you know, as little as I would be using this in dock mode personally. But if you're looking for a gaming keyboard, that might be one to look into. Personally, what I would recommend is the Logitech K380, which is actually what I have back here. It's this white keyboard. As you actually, you know what? I'll just grab it here. That's what the Logitech K380 looks like. Now, I like the Logitech K380 because it's a Bluetooth keyboard that can switch between 3 devices, so if, like me, you're using it as a secondary device to your main computer, or if you're going to have it docked up on a separate monitor and you don't want to have 2 keyboards around just so you can interact with the Steam Deck, it's nice to be able to just switch to that device with the press of a button, start typing there as needed, and then switch back to your main machine. So yeah, the Logitech K380 is not an expensive keyboard. I think you can get it for, I want to say $20 or $30. I'll drop a link to it below, but yeah, it's not like some other Bluetooth keyboards that can get for like 80, 90, $100 or anything like that. It's just a very well-built, very reliable keyboard that has tons and tons of battery life, runs off a couple of AAAs. I love it. I've been using it for years at this point, and Logitech's pretty much been my go-to for Bluetooth switchable keyboards like that. Now, again, if you're like looking for a gaming keyboard, probably not going to be the best fit for you. It doesn't have like, you know, like a numpad or anything like that, but it's one that I would recommend if you're just looking for a lightweight solution to efficiently switch between your main machine and then, you know, the Steam Deck if you just want to manage files, play games that require a mouse and keyboard and that kind of thing. Next up would be a micro SD card that has a pretty high transfer speed. Now, you can find these just about anywhere. Amazon has a ton of them, dirt cheap, and you can get them in capacities up to like a terabyte if you want. The only thing that I would caution against is I've read a lot of reports online of like fake SanDisk memory cards coming out of Amazon, where third-party sellers have been putting up pictures of what looks like an official SanDisk memory card, but it's actually not, and they get something that's like off-brand or lower quality or fails faster than you would expect. So, I mean, you could go down to like a Best Buy or someplace where you know you've got a reputable retailer and you're going to be actually getting a first-party official SD card. Not like there's like a Steam Deck official SD card, but you know what I mean, like one that is actually from a reputable manufacturer, and you're not going to get duped into like, you know, some off-brand that might, again, fail on you, which would be terrible. But I definitely recommend expanding the storage, because the weird thing is, whether you get the 64 gig model of the Steam Deck, the 256, or the 512, you're probably going to fill it up no matter what you do. I personally went for the 512 gig model, but even with that much space, I still wanted additional space for ROMs and games that were not part of my regular Steam library. So I would get as big of a memory card as you possibly can. I've loaded up a ton of games on mine and has not had any problems reading it from there. Also, native Steam content, I sort of assumed, because they're using an SSD for the internal drive, that it would be just like light years faster than using an SD card, and weirdly enough, that has not proven to be the case. In fact, to me, there's a negligible difference between loading games from the SD card or the internal drive. So if you want to save some dough and get like a lower tier model of the Steam Deck and get like the 64 gig or the 256, you're totally fine to do that, because you can expand all the storage that you have to that micro SD slot, and you're not going to take a massive performance hit. Granted, I'm using, you know, a card that's rated for a higher speed, but as long as you're not using like some, you know, just cheap, horrible card, I can't imagine you'll have any issues with it. And as far as I could tell, I could not really tell a difference between games that were launching from the internal storage versus the external storage that I had through that SD card slot. But yeah, especially if you have like a massive Steam library, or like me, you're planning to explore emulation, just put a ton of ROMs and ISOs on your Steam Deck so that you can play things from like GameCube and Dreamcast and all of that. Would definitely recommend expanding your storage, especially given how cheap storage is, relatively speaking. And finally, even though I've talked about the Steam Deck a lot in dock mode up to this point, I will say that generally it is a handheld device, and while I don't necessarily think it's so portable that you would want to cart it with you everywhere, you might want to take it around the house with you and not have to worry about being tethered to something to supply power. But unfortunately, the reality is that if you're playing games that, you know, just have a lot of graphical prowess associated with them, again, a game like Horizon Zero Dawn or like Forza or something like that that's really going to tax the GPU, you're going to go through battery really, really quickly. So I think an external power bank is an absolute necessity, but you want to be careful when you choose one. So inside the Steam Deck, I believe, has like a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, I want to say, or thereabouts. So you probably want to make sure that you find a battery that at least has 10,000 to 20,000 milliamps, so you can recharge it, you know, 2 or 3 times, I would say. But the other thing is, it's not just how big the battery is, but also how much power it can actually deliver. The power brick that comes with the system does a 45 watt power delivery, I want to say. Now, I actually already had a big, beefy, like Anker backup battery that I used to, you know, like keep like phones and tablets charged whenever I was traveling. And I was like, oh, well, that'll be fine. I'll just use that to charge the Steam Deck. did not work because that can only deliver, I think it was 5 watts of power. So if you're going to be on the lookout for, you know, a battery, like a backup battery or a power bank or something like that, so you can recharge the Steam Deck or keep juice flowing to it while you're, you know, playing a more taxing game, you're going to want to look for something that does, I believe it's at least 20 watts of power delivery. Ideally something like 45 or higher, but I think the higher the power delivery is, the more expensive those batteries tend to get. So you might have to do some research to find the best bang for the buck. I don't actually have a model that I would specifically recommend. Maybe I will by the time I've edited this. If so, I'll go ahead and throw a link probably down below. Sorry, not up here. It won't be another video. Or maybe it'll be another video. Maybe I'll do a video testing the battery. But yeah, I'm basically on the lookout for a battery, because one of the things that I found is, even though I love, you know, like playing horror games or like a big AAA action game on my couch while I'm like watching Netflix or whatever, the battery goes down pretty quickly. So I am definitely on the lookout for a backup battery for that. And I would suggest that you do the same if you get a Steam Deck, because you are more than likely going to run across a situation where you're either A, traveling and you can't get to a power outlet easily, or B, you are just playing it portable mode around the house, but you know, you don't find yourself particularly close to an outlet, so it would probably be nice just to be able to plug into, like, you know, a giant battery pack or something like that. Alright, and that's pretty much it. I think they're pretty standard accessories to recommend, really. There were a couple of things that I want to throw in here as honorable mentions, but I haven't gotten them yet to explore them. One would be like the D brand skins that I've seen. Those look pretty cool. So if you're looking for a way to protect your Steam Deck, that might be worth checking out. But yeah, if you have any suggestions, you know, if you're somebody who pre-ordered a Steam Deck, or you already have one and there's an accessory that you think I should absolutely pick up, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm absolutely loving this thing and I want to get the most out of it that I can. As always, thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Take care, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.